Hey everyone, this is Nick, and we're going to be taking a look at the brewing features for the Gaggia Accademia. And now, I say brewing features because not only are we going to be looking at the actual drinks that we can make, but how the Accademia lets us customize, because there's quite a few variables that we can change. So we'll look at things like variable pre-infusion, the ability to actuate a flow control knob, and just taking a look at how we would brew using regular or pre-ground coffee. So let's pull some shots. Let's take a look now at some of the drinks that we can make using the Accademia. So this is what's referred to as a one-touch espresso machine, but we'll be saving that explanation for when I talk about milk drinks. For now, let's take a look at what the Accademia offers as far as coffee drinks. So along the left side of the machine, we have dedicated buttons for espresso, cafe, and Cafe Lungo. So these are three all-coffee drinks that are brewed bean to cup, meaning that we have freshly ground whole beans that are used to brew. Now, our last button here, that lets us choose between dispensing hot water and steam. So there's a manual steam wand on the Accademia in addition to its carafe, which is one of its unique features. But before we go ahead and brew these drinks, let's actually take a look at what we can do. So the center right button here with the little cup icon above it, if we press this, that gets us into our beverage menu. Now, the beverage menu is where you can go ahead and program the settings for every drink. And so just one thing to note that's a little goofy is cafe, for instance, on this button is actually coffee in the menu. Cafe Lungo is long coffee. Now, let's just take a look at our espresso, for example, though. If you click into here, you can see we have several settings that we can adjust, starting with coffee amount. Now, coffee amount refers specifically to the amount of ground coffee that's going to be used in our shot. So that will determine how long the grinder will run and how much will go into the puck. So strong is the max, which is 10 grams, and then mild, which is the lightest, is going to be 7 grams. Now, if you want to use the machine's bypass doser, which is the doser that you use to load pre-ground coffee into the machine, we can select the ground coffee option, which is portrayed here by our little scoop. So if we don't want to do that, though, let's just say, for instance, that we want to leave that at strong. We have pre-brewing. Now, this is pre-infusion. And we have off, which means that the machine will simply grind and then start brewing. We have normal, which means that it will soak the coffee just a little bit before going into a full extraction. And then we have extra, which is a very long soak before extracting. That's great to tame some of the brightness, say if you have a really fresh, juicy coffee, but also to extract some really rich, intense flavors. So I would definitely recommend that you try that. Now, temperature, we have 3 settings, low, normal, and high. I would say high if you like a really hot cup, but you always want to make sure too that you're either using that cup warmer to preheat your crockery in the morning, or that you're using, say, the hot water from the wand to heat up a large travel mug. Now, coffee length is something that we can set here in the menu, but I do want to talk just a little bit about this. Now, we can set our coffee length here, and there's a little bar that basically fills in with more color as we do that, but we can also program our beverage length by pushing and holding these buttons, and I'll show you how to do that. And in my opinion, that's going to be much more valuable because we can push and hold and actually see how much liquid is in our cup before we save it. And then you'll see this actual setting here change based on that result, and you could still increase or decrease as you want, but that's how coffee length works. Now, our last setting here is obviously to restore our default values. So we'll go out of here, because the one other thing that I wanted to say is that while we can program our drink's strength in the menu, we also have our aroma strength selector button right here. And if you push it, you can start to see, oh hey, those bean icons on the front of the screen are filling in. So that's mild, medium, and then the intense for the full-bodied 10 grams. You push that one more time, and then we get the scoop too. If you leave it so that the beans are faded out, that's going to use your preset strength for whatever drink you brew. And that covers the basic brew parameters that you can set for your coffee drinks on the Accademia. Before we begin going over the coffee drinks that the Accademia can brew, I do want to do a bit of a demonstration for your first shot. Now, anyone who's unfamiliar with super automatics may not know that your very first shot will probably not look as pretty as your next couple of shots that you brew. This is primarily because the brew unit inside the machine will not be properly filled with coffee the first time around. There's a little auger inside your bean hopper that pulls those beans down into the grinder and then grinds into the group. Gaggia uses something called the Gaggia Adaptive System that learns to adjust itself based on the selection of your strength as well as the type of coffee you're using. So all you really need to do once your grind is set is add your beans, select your strength, and the Accademia will brew better and better shots each time. But let me go ahead and pull a mock shot that might look more or less what your first shot would look like. And now if you're thinking, we can do better, well, we absolutely can. So keep watching for some delicious crema-topped shots of espresso. Let's take a look now at making a crema-topped shot of espresso. So using the programming menu, we got most of the way there as far as getting the drink tailored to the way I wanted it. But as I mentioned, a progress bar is not a good substitute for actually seeing the desired volume in your cup. Now, for any of these buttons out here, excluding our steam and hot water, we can actually press and hold that drink to go into the memory mode, and that's going to let us program the volume. So if I press and hold espresso, you can see the mem icon appear on the screen. Now, once the shot is brewing, we'll actually see the word stop appear here in the bottom left. And all we need to do is simply push this button to stop the flow of the espresso once we've reached our desired volume. That looks good for a nice short shot, and as you can see, we have a delicious head of crema on there as well. And it's simply that easy to program your desired volume simply by pushing and holding the buttons on the front of the machine. For our next drink, I will be demoing the Accademia's flow knob. So this is something that lets us adjust the backflow of water. So it will allow us to tailor the contact time of the water with our shot for either a lighter or more full-bodied extraction. And so just to kind of make something clear here, the largest dot actually represents the most restriction, with the smallest dot representing the least restriction. So you turn that to the right, that's sort of righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. And I'll demo that because we're going to have a long drink to pull. So we'll go ahead and start our Cafe Lungo. And now you'll be able to see this stream changing as it's extracting, and I am changing this knob here. So we start very restricted, and as we turn, you can see a much faster stream here. Slow that back down again, tighten those streams up. It's really important to note that if you're programming the volume of a drink, you really want to leave the knob static, because it's going to be tricky for you to remember, oh, where did I have this positioned when I was programming? Did I have it here? Did I have it there? And one of the great things, though, about the flow knob is not only using it to tailor specific drinks to your liking. Say, for example, if you really wanted to slow down the extraction on an espresso, but for example, this is a great way to make adjustments to your extraction without necessarily having to do anything to your grind. And the Accademia was one of the first machines to feature this as a brewing option, and it has not really been repeated that often since. So definitely play with that. You can really change a lot about your coffee. Another great feature about brewing on the Gaggia Accademia is the ability to double up on a coffee drink selection. So now for espresso, cafe, and cafe lungo, by pressing the button twice, we can let the Accademia know that we want to have it grind and brew that drink for us twice. Now, this is something that's unique among Gaggia machines, because many super automatics will simply double the volume of liquid in your cup, and not the amount of ground coffee. So it will use all your settings and simply repeat that drink twice. This is terrific if you have a guest who wants the same drink as you, or if you want to half, say, maybe the volume in your cup, but double the amount of ground coffee. So again, to do that, we'll simply press our button twice. And just like that, with 2 taps, you can make any coffee drink twice in a row. For our final demonstration, we'll take a look at using pre-ground coffee using the Accademia's bypass doser. Now, one thing I want to note is that the bypass doser in the Accademia is a really nice feature, and it has been designed quite well. So there's a dedicated hatch that you simply press down on, which opens the doser. So that's right behind the display, and we have a large chute that we can dump our coffee down. Now, there are some steps and nuance that you want to take into consideration if you're going to use this feature, however. So our included scoop that came with the machine is calibrated to 1 maximum dose for our brew unit. So when you're loading coffee into the bypass doser, you really want to make sure that you're not exceeding this scoop. So no heaps, really just nice level scoops. The other thing is you want to make sure that you don't compact coffee into the scoop, because it can max out the pressure. If you do, that will cause the machine to dump your shot and you'll have to brew all over again. So we'll go ahead, and for the bypass chute, you simply want to use coffee that has been pre-ground for espresso. And if you're not sure, you can always take a look at the container and see which brew methods the roaster recommends this for. Now, go ahead and get your scoop. You can get a heaping scoop, but then you really want to give that a nice shake. Fill in any crevices, and then using your finger or the flat edge of a knife, we can simply break up any boulders that we have on the top there, and then just give it a nice level. So we have a nice level scoop that we can go ahead now and load in. Now, we'll simply go ahead and dump that into the bypass chute. Close that up. And let's say I want my espresso with the bypass. We'll simply press until the scoop icon appears and select espresso. And it's going to prompt me to put the coffee in, which we've already done. So we'll select OK, and we'll brew our shot. And there you have a freshly brewed crema-rich shot of espresso. But there are a couple of other things that I wanted to touch on first. First of all, pre-ground coffee loses its freshness much more quickly than whole beans. So if you have a can of pre-ground that's been sitting in the cupboard for a while, you may find that if it's been a couple of months since your last use, that the crema is looking pretty weak. So a lot of people like to use the bypass doser to load decaf into the chute, which is a great option. But again, if that's been sitting around for a while and your guest is enjoying some decaf, it may be nice of you to go and get some that's fresh. But otherwise, that's how you would use the bypass doser to brew shots on the Gaggia Accademia.